morning, everyone. This is Ann Werner, PPACG. It's right at 9 o'clock. I appreciate everyone in attendance that could make it. We've got a full agenda this morning. As you can see, we've got our three site applications that we'd like to discuss. We'll have the engineers for each of these present an overview of their project, hit some of the major highlights of what each project involves, and then take questions. For those of you in attendance that are not part of the Water Quality or SARC Committee, we would ask that if you have any questions at this meeting, that you put them in the chat and we will try and get to them as we can. Otherwise, we will answer them at the CAC meeting later today. Thank you all, and I'll let our chair, Jonathan Moore, take it from here.
Thank you, Ann. Operate here. All right, it is June 28, 2023. It's 9:01, and this is again the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments Water Quality Management Committee. Up on the list first is Bradley Lift Station. Who do we have here for the Bradley Lift Station?
Me, Justin. I'm in the room, and should be Burns and McDonald on the ball.
Yes. Sorry, figuring out my technical situation here. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good.
Good. Would you like to do a formal presentation like we did last time with kind of an overview, or what format would you guys like?
Yeah, let's go with the overview, and I believe on this one there was some questions from SARC that we asked regarding how these lift stations could work using the same force main. I believe Mark Parker had those questions. So in your presentation, if you could address that, that would be great.
Yeah. Let me share my screen. You want to see that?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All right. Riley Lift Station. I can forward here.
Before we
There we
begin, there was a request for just people to introduce themselves in the room.
Yeah, so I just thought about that actually. We'll do
was that?
introductions. I forgot to do that.
Oh, go ahead.
We'll start in here. We'll start to my right. We'll go around.
The guy with his mouth full.
Yeah, I picked on it.
Roy Yield, Security, Water and Sanitation Districts.
Thank you, Roy. Jonathan Moore, Fountain Sanitation District and Lower Fountain.
Brandon Bernard, Security, Water and Sanitation Districts.
Kevin Brown, Cherokee Metro District.
Justin Fecto, Colorado Springs Utilities, Wastewater Planning.
Ann Werner, PPACG.
And off to the side, Jared Werner, PPACG.
And if you're online, please introduce yourself really quick so we know who's here.
You want me to call names? So people-
Sure.
I'll hold panel on our end. Connie, if you can go first.
Yes, I'm Connie King, a law firm. I represent Security, Upper Monument, Lower Fountain.
Thank you, Connie. James Starnes.
Hi, yes, James Starnes with Respec Engineering and here to support Teller County Wastewater Utility.
Thank you, James. Joe Good.
Yeah, Joe Good with Entech Engineering. I'll be talking about the Broadmoor Seven Falls system.
Thank you. Mark Parker.
Co-chair, Monument, Water and Sand.
Thank you. Tyler Robinson.
Tyler Robinson with Burns and McDonald.
Thank you. Wally Eves.
Wally Eves, Woodman Hills.
And Doug Schwenke.
Yeah, Doug Schwenke here with Respec.
That's it. That's all
Awesome.
online. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll turn it back to you guys about Bradley Lift Station.
Okay. We'll switch right over. You all can see that?
Yep.
Okay. We'll do an intro, and then we can just interrupt on the part where we talk about the common force mains, or we can wait till the end. I'll leave it up to you guys. I think it just makes sense to go over that since you all mostly know the intro of it. But we are doing a new lift station near the Colorado Springs Airport. That would be part of the Peak Innovation Park subdivision subsystem, where they have several lift stations there that have been developed over time. That whole area has been dedicated to all flow to one point from, back all the way back in the 90s, I believe. And so they're slowly getting more and more developed, and Bradley Lift Station is part of that development as well. So that name of that area is Peak Innovation Park. Here's an overview of the whole system here. Each of the different colors here are the different flow areas where they all go down to a common lift station, or they would go to a gravity outlet here. The orange goes to the existing Drennan lift station. We'll go over this more in a sec, but just an overview. The green all goes to the Grinnell lift station, which is also known as Airport Business Park lift station as well. And then the blue one is the Peak lift station, which is currently under construction. And then the purple area is the dedicated development for Bradley lift station there. And the common outfall is way up to the northwest of the site here. If you see my mouse, they all will flow to different lift stations, and then the final outlet is up here where it goes into an interceptor down to the Las Vegas wastewater treatment plant. Just kind of an overview of the whole kind of basin of the Peak Park. Here's a more overview of the Bradley area. So what was indicated in purple there, mostly looking at light industrial, commercial, and then a residential that's coming down from the south there, known as a Waterview residential area. That's just going to be tapping in from the south there. It's off of airport property, but it will be tying into the Bradley lift station. There's a large hill you have to go over to get from here down to the rest of the lift stations and over there. So everything kind of flows to this low bottom area right here where we're putting the Bradley lift station. The full build out for Bradley right now is anticipated for 1.41 for peak flow. That would be the peak hour flow for full build out, and depending on how development actually happens and timing and all that stuff. Indications from the airport thinks that Waterview could be happening as one of the more quick developments that do happen. So the residential, the 0.7 MGD could be one of the more, the quicker of things that could come into play. But you also know how developers are. It could be something popping up next week or in 10 years. We don't really know, but that's the full anticipated area for this purple. So here's sort of how they all tie together. Here's an overview of how the lift stations all go to eventually to that interceptor to the north that flows down to the wastewater plant. Bradley and Peak will flow into a manhole, which will go by gravity to Grinnell, and Grinnell will flow in a shared force main with Drennan lift station to go to the interceptor to go to the plant there. Grinnell, also known as Airport Park in the site app, excuse me, has been there since the early 90s, I believe, and its current flows are around 0.2 for peak hour flows currently, based on the meter data provided by CSU. So they're pretty low as far as what flows they're receiving right now and what they have received for the last 30 years. Although the development plan for that area could get all the way up to 1.2. Currently, it's not seeing that. And then Drennan lift station, I don't know that I have meter data for that one, but I think it's within the 1 MGD range, I believe, for Drennan as well. So that's the kind of future for Grinnell and Drennan. And then Peak lift station, it's small enough that it's just going to go to probably 0.35 immediately with only the few users that will be tied to it. And then Bradley could phase in over time. the intent is to build it for a 1.41, but during the design phase, work on how we would actually phase that in with, 3 pumps with VFDs or 3 pumps and 2 force mains. We're going to work through that on the design phase. So that's kind of how they all tie together. You guys have questions on that one, on how I guess I can also say that the intent is, even though that the flows from Bradley could exceed Grinnell, the way that development could happen, will happen. The intent is to monitor the flows, and as we get close to 70-85%, the idea would be CSU would monitor those flows, and as development continues to happen, then we would plan to upgrade the system wherever it seems to be appropriate. Grinnell, is 30 years old. Maybe that's time to do it there, or there's not a lot of flows going there. Maybe we do something with Bradley and we send it another direction. There's a lot of different scenarios that could go depending on how development actually happens. And the idea was, let's wait and see where flows come in before we get to that point. Does that make sense?
Mark, do you still have questions about how the Drennan lift station and the Grinnell lift station are gonna work together? Was that your original question? I don't want to put words in your mouth, Mark, but.
Well, yeah, they were saying that the force main, I believe, for Grinnell and Drennan is fairly aged, and now we're wanting to stick another almost 2 million gallons a day through it. And I understand that, that's build up capacity or whatever, but we've also seen something this year that we haven't seen in some time, and with all the rain and stuff, I don't have a specific percentage on increase we saw, but just a little bit concerned how the timing all works together here on making sure we don't back flood something, or we exceed the capacity of a force main or a gravity system or something.
Okay, I can probably help with that a little bit. This is Justin Fecto with Colorado Springs Utilities. So it's important to realize that the force mains are hooked together right now. They're sharing a common force main today. This exists right now with the common force main. Airport Business Park pumps through that common force main, and also does the Drennan lift station. The way Tyler and Burns and McDonald have this programmed, the initial phases of the Bradley lift station will flow via gravity to the Airport Business Park. So the Airport Business Park pumping capacity will remain largely the same. We want to utilize all the capacity that's at the Airport Business Park, and then we will monitor the capacity via our SCADA data, and we would control development using the wastewater master facility forms that are required for each development that would occur anywhere in the city, really, but specifically in the Airport Business Park. So you can imagine that we would know what the current day flows are at the Airport Business Park. Is the Airport Business Park performing well? And we would, if we saw a proposed development that we had concerns with, we would trigger the upgrades to the Airport Business Park lift station and the Drennan lift station concurrently. The developer, Urban Frontier, is made aware of that. They understand that it will be their responsibility to make those upgrades when that time comes.
Do you have a hard flow limit where you would start upgrades?
We would probably start getting concerned when we got to 400,000 gallons a day at the Airport Business Park lift station. Right now it's at 20,000. So we got a ways to go. And like Tyler was saying, the development can vary quite a bit, especially in this business park. Sometimes you get a user that's a lot of land, industrial user, but actually doesn't generate a lot of flow. Sometimes you're gonna get, it's really unknown what's gonna happen in there. So the intent here is to phase this in, so we're not gonna build the full build out capacity right on day one. We want this lift station to perform well. We don't want to have a lot of water stagnant just sitting in a force main because there's only 5,000 gallons a day hooked up to a 1.2 MGD lift station. So they're going to go with that first phase, which will be a little bit lower, and then we will monitor that first phase and the developments that come in. Does that help answer the question? Oh,
It does, and I guess I have one other question also to kind of tag in with this. At what point, because right now I'm looking at 4 different lift stations
mhm.
going in here for development out there. When do we go into some sort of a regional lift station or flow into Fountain, or do we just keep adding lift stations? Failure points to
Yeah, no, it's
development here, or what?
That's a fair question. No, no one wants no one, I particularly don't want more lift stations, so, the topography of this area is very challenging though. Most of these drainages are separate and discrete. They really want to flow like where the peak Innovation Park, where the peak lift station is, that wants to flow towards the Big Johnson Reservoir. So you can't really get it out to a common lift station, if you will. Bradley is on the edge of the airport's property, and we're doing the studies and alternatives analysis now to see what we would do with land to the east of that. So we are working on determining Colorado Springs Utilities' path forward, and that includes several alternatives. One of those would be a regional lift station towards the bottom of the city property. There's other ideas about connecting to the lower fountain system. There's ideas about building a new wastewater treatment facility out there too. We just haven't fully settled on one yet, but we're going through that analysis as we speak. So it's important as we do that analysis and move forward, we really need to keep the timing good for the airport, and this lift station we see is valuable and lets them construct something now that can serve their development, that we don't know what we're going to do in the future, and what we would do in the future, we expect to take quite a bit of time to get that implemented and built. So we're comfortable, CSU is comfortable with the Bradley lift station and the way that's set up.
Thanks, Justin. Does anybody else have any other questions for Tyler or Justin?
I've got one, Jonathan.
Yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
So just real quick, it's just a question. If you could go back to the schematic real quick, Tyler, that you flashed up a minute ago. So you've got a single force main pumping, well, Grinnell pumps downstream into this force main, Drennan pumps into it. So you've got a single shared force main with 1, 2, 3, 4 lift stations all flowing into it at some point in time. Was there any thought or consideration given to building in some sort of redundancy for that? I could just see if you had a break in the force main downstream of where Drennan connects, then all 4 lift stations are out of service. Backup power generation isn't going to do any good. And then you're running against the clock to get a force main fixed before your overflow storage capacity at each lift station site fills up.
No, there was no redundancy consideration for that. We usually don't have a redundant force main for most of our lift stations. Even a big lift station like the Sand Creek lift station, that gets 10 MGD of flow. It flows through one force main right now. So yes, we would be against the clock. We understand that.
How many hours of overflow storage are you building into these?
The hours of overflow storage are 1 hour at peak flow rate.
And you guys feel you can get a crew out there and fix a force main in an hour?
No, we know we couldn't get that. We know we couldn't get a crew out there in an hour.
Okay,
But that's consistent with the other lift station designs that we've done across the city. 1 hour peak flow storage. That does give a crew a time to resolve a pump issue. All the lift stations come with our level alarms and a backup generator.
what's the pipe material on that force main?
Pipe material is PVC.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you,
And
Jesse, for that.
what's the depth on it?
The depth of I would have to look that up, but I imagine the force main is at least 6 feet deep.
Yeah, I'm with Jesse, you know, an hour storage on 4 lift stations and a force main failure of a repair for even if you several crews is going to be at least 8 hours or more. And that's where, you know, struggling, you know, I'm not quite sure you guys got enough suck trucks to take care of 4 lift stations. And yeah, I know we're not at max flow yet or whatever, but guess what? That's when things go south, and I'm just really struggling with this.
Understood.
Have there been any recent incidents of an overflow at lift station in the CSU system?
Like how recent?
Last few years.
Last few years? I would say overflows from the lift stations. No, not at the particular lift station. There was a force main break on the middle tributary lift station, which also serves 2 other. It's a similar situation. The middle tributary actually doesn't have any storage, and the Monument Branch lift station that pumps into it has an hour of peak flow storage.
I understand. Oh, go ahead.
So what was there an overflow resulting from that situation, or were you able to manage it?
Well, the force main broke, so yeah, I mean, it got out.
Yeah.
I was just saying, I understand the economics of development within the airport and what that does for everybody.
Mhm.
But I think Mark and Jesse bring up good points, is if CSU comes to this board with another lift station, you know, in the next month or 2, you see where we're going with this. We're here to talk big picture, but it's like CSU could be setting themselves up for failure here.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So I think to Jesse's point and Mark's point, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but this committee might be like, man, how many more lift stations are you going to put on one line? Right? Because you're right, it is going to take time. So that's just probably a concern
Okay.
that we're going to have moving forward. And I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think if I'm interpreting Mark and Jesse, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my
Yes.
thoughts are just, you know, I don't think there's any requirement from CDPHE for them to provide any sort of redundancy. If
Right.
this was my system and I had 4 lift stations all pumping into a single line, i.e. the stretch from Drennan down to the manhole that force main connects into to gravity to the wastewater plant, I'd be quite nervous about a failure.
Well, and to your point, Jesse, it's a great point, and I think we all understand the difficulty of building in redundancy. But as I recall, that's pretty much what happened. You mentioned the Sand Creek lift station. I think that's what happened in 1999 when raw sewage was going down Fountain Creek for days and days and resulted in lawsuits and EPA issues and so on and so forth. So it's not something to take lightly, and frankly, it's happened before. So.
Mark, you were going to say something?
No, I'm just echoing what Jesse and Roy said. I again, my struggle is, you know, we've got a bunch of lift stations going into, I think the gentleman said, a 35-year-old force main. And it's just, and I hope CSU's attitude towards this is like, well, we'll just pay the fines or whatever, and we'll live on the edge, and if it happens, it happens, and we'll deal with it. But I'm struggling with CSU's approach to all of this, and so.
I guess I could chime in on the topography of it. You guys mentioned if we had another lift station end up being out here, even if we combined all of, let's say, Bradley's one of the lowest points there, just do the topography in the area. If let's just say we sent everything down to Bradley lift station somehow, it would have to, your PSI on that force main would be over 200 PSI. So you have a high pressure force main just to get it all the way up that hill to that spot. And so I think having multiple lift stations in this area was just unavoidable in the first place. There could have maybe, peak lift station, the little one, maybe could have been phased in a little differently from the beginning, but going over the hills all the way up to the top, I think was unavoidable for this area. And unless we sent it another way, like Justin was saying, to another wastewater plant, but that's, that could be years and years before that happens.
Well, and the unfortunate thing is CSU's attitude towards, it's got to go to their plant or whatever. Well, there's two downstream plants of all of this, and one, I guess, that they're a regional partner in, and it just doesn't seem like none of that is being, looked at. And I know Roy didn't build his plant to take CSU flow or whatever, but not quite sure what they call the fountain plant, but it just seems like we're putting a lot of strain on aged infrastructure to accommodate stuff.
I guess that's kind of always the whole system, right? I mean, there's the main flow that goes into the plant, and there are other lines that have higher flows with lots of other lift stations connect to them too. So it's just, where do you draw the line with redundancies and aging infrastructure? Huh? I also wanted to mention that we talked with the idea of having Bradley at the full capacity. That was after discussion with the state on how we could phase this in the most logical way. And Brett Eisenagel, when he was still with the state, it was his idea to say, look, we're transitioning to this, let's build for full phase, and we'll figure it out as we go, instead of limiting construction and only building a 0.5 MGD and then upgrading, doing a site app over and over again. Let's build it and then monitor and see how things go and as development actually happens.
Tyler, how long of a line is it from Grinnell, the force main from Grinnell to the manhole that gravities to the wastewater plant?
I think it's about 2 miles, Justin, is that right?
I'd have to look it up.
I think it's about 2. I think it's about 1 mile, or no, I think it's a little bit less than that too, where it connects with Drennan. But also Justin and I were looking at the asset information for Grinnell or Airport Business Park, and I mean, that lift station's in great condition just because it hasn't been used. To imagine the force main could be fairly similar for a PVC.
I'm really loving this discussion because I think, number one, the discussion with CSU is saying, hey, we're looking big picture here, and in this area particularly, if you guys come back with another lift station, what our concerns are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we're a recommendation board, right? I mean, we're not the final say, but I think people are going to weigh our opinion and our vote. And it's just, I agree, nobody wants raw sewage running in the gutters or anything like that. You don't want it, we don't want it. But it's good that CSU's on record now about their game plan, but if there's not any more questions, what is the board's wish on this applicant? What's the board wanting to do?
Well, I think we've raised our concerns are on the record, and as you say, CSU's aware of them. What was the recommendation from the SARC?
To approve it once they answered our concerns about the force main.
Right.
So that was our big concern from SARC was the force main.
I would move to forward a favorable recommendation to PPACG. We voiced our concerns, but I don't know that we've provided any magic solutions, so.
Not building that force main, which is probably not economic.
Right. So that's my motion.
Okay, is there a second?
This is Mark. I'll second it. But I think Justin needs to take, and I'm not attacking Justin. Justin is, he's just like the rest of us. But I think at some point we're going to need to start seeing something from CSU for some of this critical infrastructure upgrade timeline, because, we just can't, we can do study after study after study or whatever, but at some point there's got to be a timeline for some of this infrastructure upgrade. A 35-year-old PVC line, if I remember correctly, we all know that stuff doesn't last forever. I think the max is like 30 or whatever. So, I think we've got to start seeing something from CSU that's going to start fixing some of this critical infrastructure to accommodate this growth. That I'm not going to say when it's happening, because it's happening now. It's going on out there like crazy. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you, Mark. Any more discussion, any more questions before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously on those are here. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Justin, for your presentations.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Again, we're just all in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Maybe just a comment. I mean,
Sure.
I don't know if it would help to show this committee the lift station facility plan and what we would do to inspect and kind of it just overall.
Information is good information, I think.
All right.
So if you got stuff, but to Mark's point, to me, and it resonated with me, is if a schedule of some sort, here's our game plan from CSU specifically for this area, I think that would resonate with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do a little bit of both,
Yeah,
once
absolutely.
our studies and alternatives analysis for
Mhm.
growth on the east side's a little more firmed up.
Right,
I'd be happy to show it to this group,
you bet.
and I'd also be happy to show
I'd start with the SARC.
with the SARC.
Yeah,
All right.
if it's information, I don't.
It's just information. We're not
Right.
really applying for anything, but it feels like
Right.
you guys got a lot of questions about
Mhm.
what we do and what goes on, and
Yeah.
it might help you guys get a little clearer insight into what the
Sure.
game plans are.
Yeah.
Both for growth and to address the aging infrastructure.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Justin. Let me know
Okay.
when you're ready and I'll put it into our meeting
She's the
schedule.
keeper of all of us, so.
Okay, I can do that. It'll probably be late summer, early fall by the time we get all this figured out.
That's okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Teller County wastewater treatment plant. Who would like to start us off on that?
Hello, group. I will do the same and share our presentation. Let's see. It's not going to work. Let's see if I can get you up there. Oh boy. Let me share a different screen. All right. Does that work for everyone?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
So this is a site location submittal for increasing the capacity of an existing wastewater treatment facility in Teller County, specifically the Teller County wastewater utility facility that supports the Divide development. The applicant, again, being Teller County wastewater utility. We are respec engineering. Doug Schwenke is also on this call and the principal engineer on this project. The service area does not currently include any lift stations, and the discharge point is to Rule Creek, which is a recreation E classified water. And at the current point, there is a little bit of dilution factor uncertainty, but we are moving forward with assuming a zero dilution credit in our design. The existing capacity of the facility is 35,000 gallons per day and 105 pounds per day. The facility is currently at the thresholds for needing to be expanded, planning and both construction. So we are moving forward with those. Of course, currently there is a tap moratorium in the service area. So new connections are not permitted until the facility has been expanded. The facility has remained in compliance with its permitted effluent limits at the flow and organic loading that it has been receiving. Service area, residential and commercial users, there's no anticipation of industrial users in the service area. The one, what I will call exceptional user is the Teller County Jail in the service area. Additional residential is anticipated, both multifamily, low-income units, low income being a particular target for development in the area. The industrial pretreatment program is actually written into the governing code. So while not anticipated, if different users were to request connection in the future, there is governing code to guide them. The projected population per 208 planning documents, Teller County planning documents, look different than maybe the projections for our capacity on this facility, but as you can quite imagine, 2% growth for a community of 175 service, 155, excuse me, SFE is a little different than maybe for 2000. So there is some planned development that has basically been on the back burner because of the existing tap moratorium. So the forecasted flows for the expanded facility, 120,000 gallons per day, up from 35. A maximum daily flow, 1.5. Our maximum month average daily flow at 180, and a peak hour flow, peak hour factor of 4 times. This facility is being planned with anticipation of potential growth beyond these values, these flow and loading, but for the time being, we are sticking with the 120,000 and max month average daily flow. The existing facility is an SBR, sequencing batch reactor and parallel batch reactor process. The schematic on the right here really represents the facility in its entirety. So pretty straightforward headworks, except for there's no mechanical parts. It's manual bar screen, influent equalization, parallel SBRs, chlorine contact chamber, solids holding, and the support building contains the dechlorination feed system. The expanded facility will also include what we call improvements. Mechanical screening will be added to the existing headworks building. Influent equalization will be expanded. SBR basins will be converted to solids holding basins, and 2 new SBR basins will be constructed. Tertiary filtration will be added, and the existing chlorine disinfection system will be replaced with a UV disinfection system. Dewatering is not a part of, or solid handling improvements is not planned in this phase. The facility currently hauls solids to Woodland Park. Woodland Park provides an ORC and contract operations for the facility, and will continue to receive solids wasted from the process. Expanded facility process flow diagram for those that are interested. You can see this is representing the existing facility. Fundamentally, a new facility on the property will be constructed containing those items discussed in the previous slide, and you can see the layout here. The goal with site planning here was to construct all new facilities outside the floodplain. Rule Creek, you can see here on the right-hand side. We have received direction from the floodplain administrator for a finished floor elevation, which we are complying with in our design. Always like to address, the redundancy questions that come up. Additional or a new backup generator will be provided. The facility currently relies on a cistern for plant water. We are running a new potable water line and gas service from a neighboring development. Supplemental emergency influent overflow capacity is anticipated to be provided into the west of the 2 future solids holding basins. And of course, all equipment will be provided redundancy per PPACG design criteria. Once again, Woodland Park will continue to provide ORC and operator support for the facility. Teller County Wastewater Utility maintaining the facility as part of its overall service area, and will pay for operations through sewer rates. Any other questions people have about redundancy, happy to address. We did mention a couple of geotechnical design considerations, groundwater being one of them, some ballasting required to counteract buoyancy. Some clay on the site was discovered during the geotechnical investigation. The swell potential on that is minimal, and the bottom of our excavations are actually below that clay layer. The entirety of the new facility is on undisturbed property, and so our schedule at this time is to move forward with our site location amendment to SARC. That's the process we're in right now. Process design report by the end of the year. Straightforwardly, I'm going to go of the presentation, and I'll leave it open for now, but I will stop screen sharing. And straightforwardly, since our last presentation to the SARC, we have received our discharge permit. I'm not sure if people remember, but we approached SARC without our discharge permit. We have since received our discharge permit. Within that, there really weren't many surprises or anything unanticipated. However, there was a manganese limit applied because of a downstream portion of our discharge stream segment is 303D designated and has a manganese limit applied to it of 0.17 milligrams per liter. So we are conducting some additional testing, and ultimately in our site location, the site location that's presented to the group, our intention is to address individual permit limits more specifically. So understand if there are questions about that. This is what we wanted to present today to see if there might be concern with us making amendments at this point to the site location application.
Thank you, James. Anybody have any questions? Hearing none, what are the board's wishes for this applicant?
And just to clarify, the SARC did recommend moving this one forward.
Someone have a motion they'd like to make regarding this?
Like to move for recommendation to the next step.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any nays? Hearing none, thank you, it passes. Thanks, James.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is the Broadmoor Seven Falls wastewater holding tanks.
All right, this is Joe Good. I will try to share my screen here so we can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, this is for Seven Falls, the Seven Falls 1858 restaurant up at that the Broadmoor is operating, and it's obviously by the name, it's right at the base of the Seven Falls. And before I talk about exactly what we're doing, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the system that we tried to install there. Well, not tried, we did install. Originally, they thought we were going to try to maintain a flow of around 1,850 gallons a day and keep it at local jurisdiction. And so a system was designed down by the restroom facilities. This is just some of the original design. We had it approved through the El Paso County Health Department. And the restaurant's right up here. And the system was installed down here by the restrooms. And if any of you have been to Seven Falls, it's a very tight canyon with a creek and very limited access and room for really anything, including a road. Here's an aerial of the restroom facilities, and the system was installed right in this area right here. It was a sand system. We had a liner on one side to minimize the flow towards the creek area. It had an advanced treatment system, Advantex, or microbiotics is what it was, up by the restaurant, and a tank. And the two things happened. One is just the usage in the restaurant was fairly heavy, and then their demand was higher than what we anticipated, or they anticipated, and it ended up at over 2,000 gallons a day. And we've measured flows from the restaurant, and they're very high. Some really July, August are the peak times when several days they're over 2,000 gallons a day. During the winter months, they're under 2,000 gallons a day. but during the peak season, it's well over. So it pushed us to, one, the other system wasn't large enough, and two, it pushed it into the CDPHE state review versus the local jurisdiction. And we have flow values for 3 years out here, and all of them, once they got going, they were too high. And so that's what pushed us into what are the alternatives. We looked at Colorado Springs Utilities, and I'm backing up here, sorry about this. There's the restaurant itself, if you guys have been up there. This map here shows the Colorado Springs Utilities service area. On this map, it looks relatively close, but Seven Falls is right in here. However, it is over 7,000 feet. Let me reduce this a little bit. From the Seven Falls area here to the closest tie-in over on West Point Road, and we have a letter from the city saying that it is too far, and at this point it's not feasible or economical for them to tie into this Colorado Springs Utilities. The proposed system that we are looking at now is a holding tanks until such time. Eventually, Broadmoor does want to tie into the city, but it's a time that it becomes feasible. So the interim to keep them operating is a holding system of several tanks. They understand they will have to pump. Let me get up to our tanks. Next one. Yeah, right here, you can see where the old system was. We're proposing several 2,500 gallon holding tanks, which will give us capacity to pump. Obviously, there's not a pumper that can take all that at once. It will give them the capacity to maintain storage while they're operating. And it gives us more than, if we were to have it, the 24-hour capacity 48-hour capacity that's needed if we have something that becomes a problem. So the restroom here right now is not tied in. We would propose they want to tie that in, but the flow from the restaurant comes down and gravity flows to this point. And then again, the Broadmoor is aware of that. It'll be during the peak months, they'll be pumping probably every day on some occasions as they move forward. And this is the same area that the tanks will be in right in here. And this we feel is the best way at this point until they can tie in because of the proximity of the creek and the tight canyon. There really isn't any option until they can tie in other than holding tanks. Unless again they go back to less than 1,800 gallons a day. That's kind of it in a nutshell. We've been working on this for a few years now. Originally, they were going to try to maintain the flows down, but after they saw where the tie-in was and the meeting with the county, that's when we pushed it up to the state level so that they would be able to operate until such time that they could tie into the city. Any questions?
Any questions for Joe regarding this?
I kind of a curiosity question. So the rated capacity of the treatment system is 2,000 gallons per day. How is the flow between the tanks and the treatment system limited to keep it under that threshold, or is that limited in any way?
No, with the new system, basically the flows are what they are. We have capacity to handle it. The old system had that limitation, but with the new system, we are planning on. And it's really, there's about a 2-week period that it really has the high flows. The majority of the flows are in that 2,000 to 3,000 gallon a day range. We're proposing 25,000 gallon capacity of the entire system. So it's not controlled. It's gravity flow. It's gravity fed to the tanks. They will have monitors in there and alarms at that point that the tanks start to become full. Our anticipation is that their pumping schedule will be such that that really won't be an issue during the peak periods.
Are the pumps gonna be automated?
No, when you say pumps, it gravities to the tanks. The pumpers will come out to pump and take the effluent
Okay.
away.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll be, on the trucks themselves.
Gotcha. So the water will back up from the existing system into the tanks, if it's exceeding capacity.
It would back up into the line that gravity feeds down to the, to this tank.
Yeah, these tanks are vaults. They don't lead anywhere. There's not a soil treatment area after the tank.
So
Yeah, they
Joe,
just
your
get-
existing soil treatment area is being taken offline and decommissioned?
Yes.
That is correct.
Oh, okay.
And what's the
Yeah.
pumping schedule? I'm just curious that Seven Falls is gonna have to do. Once a
Well,
week, once every 2 weeks?
no, we anticipate during normals about once a week, once every 2 weeks. During the peak season, there will be times when it'll be maybe twice a week.
And where's that wastewater disposed of?
It's our understanding that they will be taking it to Colorado Springs Utilities.
Okay.
Any more questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion
I'll make a motion.
for approval?
Yeah, to move it forward.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, thank you.
All right, thank you.
One comment I didn't make on the Teller County thing, if I heard right, he says they're not gonna be done till 2025. And there's a moratorium on all taps, so that place is dead.
Right, a while.
Well, if you're a landowner, that'd be
Yeah.
pissed for a while, but I think they would have got this a little earlier, right? Okay, item number 2, members update. Ann, I'm gonna turn time over to you because I think you have something for all of us, is that right?
Yeah, we only have, I think we're scheduled for an hour, is that right? We only have a couple of minutes. It's close to 10 o'clock. Just a quick thing for the 3 applicants. The next step for you all will be 3 PM this afternoon with our Citizens Advisory Committee. You're first up on the agenda. So you'll have an opportunity to do exactly what you did this morning, give a brief overview and answer questions. And I think what will be important is for the Bradley Creek Lift Station engineers to accurately and as correctly as you can portray what Justin discussed and the follow-up that he'll have with our 2 committees, both the SARC and Water Quality Committee later this summer with what CSU's overall game plan is for that area where those 4 lift stations are currently. Because there may be some questions from the CAC members on that. Once you get through CAC, which is again today at 3, and I believe everyone has the link, meeting link and information on that. Then we'll move forward to our board of directors, which their next meeting is on July 12th. So I will get you that information once I have it from our admin staff who take care of that meeting and meeting links. Do you all have any questions on the next 2 processes, CAC and then board? If you do, please reach out to me. My work phone rings directly to my cell phone, so if you happen to call that, I'll get your phone call. Otherwise, just send an email. So moving off of that, and because of time, we won't jump into it too heavily. But I sent the water quality and SARC committee members a email message from Patty Zitlow at CSU, kind of a heads up on Reg 22 that's going through the Department of Health and has been for several months. But my understanding, and I haven't dived into this very deeply yet, but my understanding is that it could increase our workload here for the committee members when it comes to existing wastewater plants having to meet this Reg 22 and having to bring their processes back through our committees for review. You'll see Patty's email. I sent it out about an hour ago to everyone, so take a look at that. And we can maybe touch on it briefly tomorrow. We've got a SARC meeting tomorrow afternoon at 1 for one site application. If we have time, we can touch on Patty's email then. Otherwise, we'll schedule a larger discussion at our next water quality committee meeting, which is the end of July. And that's all I have at this point.
Yeah, and I will not be at the SARC meeting tomorrow. I'm sorry, I have a
Okay, thank you.
conflict, but
Yeah.
I do want to take the time to read that though. So that looks like good information. Thank you. All righty, anything else that the committee has? Over here. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Hearing none. Thank you all. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your presentations.